Did you know that we're living longer today in the United States? And that now that we're living longer, is that really healthier? What's the reason we're living longer? The advances in science and in terms of medication and what we should do to live longer are exponentially getting better. No question. So today people with a chronic disease such as diabetes, high blood pressure or hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and quite a few other chronic diseases can live longer. So the next question is, does that mean we're increasing our longevity? Well, just because we're living longer doesn't mean that we're increasing our longevity. The definition of longevity is technically how genes are expressed in terms of what we call a telomere, and I will get into that later. And then there's a side that's called anti-aging. Now, most women know what anti-aging is. They use a cream or solution on their skin to make them look younger. And while these lotions, potions, creams, they actually do work and you do look younger, what's happening on the inside? There are external factors that age us as well, such as stress. And stress can be your job, what happens at home, your relationship. Do you have any physical stress? Have you had an injury? Do you have any brain trauma? Have you had any surgeries? You could even go so far as what goes in your body. That means what you drink, what you put on your skin, and even the nutrition you take. While memory loss and loss in cognition is completely normal and it's part of aging, it doesn't always have to occur. I mean, forgetting where you put your wallet, your cell phone, what in the world did I come into this room for, are real common. And as my wife puts it, why didn't you remember where we parked the car? It happens. And it's all part of life and it's natural. What can we do to combat this? Well, we can do puzzles, we can learn a new language, we can take classes on music, we can take an app that has to do with memory, we can work on things for memories. And this is the biggest part of retirement. Most people when they retire go, I'm done working. So what do? They go sit in front of the TV and they do nothing. What happens is their brain starts to decay. What's called neurodegeneration. It's because they're not doing anything to stimulate their brain. They sit in front of a TV. And then they have, well, why am I losing more memory? It's part of aging. It's part of being there. Well, what are you doing to combat it? Being forgetful can be relatively frustrating, especially when it comes to where in the world did I park my car and now the weather's changing. So the brain needs several things to survive. First, it needs a blood supply. The blood has to be pumped up to the brain for the brain to be happy. The second thing, it has to have oxygen. It needs to be able to breathe. It needs to get rid of its, when it goes through its oxidation cycle, namely carbon dioxide. And the third thing it needs to have is food, in which case this comes in the form of glucose. If the blood sugar is too high, it's too much. If the blood sugar is too low, it's too little. Well, if the blood pressure is too high, it might be pushing things into the brain. And if the blood pressure is too low, like we're cold all the time, a symptom of low circulation, the brain's not getting enough blood supply, food, and oxygen, and you start to have neurodegenerative problems. As I said before, we're living longer in the United States, but it's not necessarily healthier. The biggest problem that's coming, at least for now, and will be in the next 20 to 30 years, is this problem called Alzheimer's. It's a decrease in cognitive function. It's a decrease in your ability to function. In the next 20 years, Alzheimer's is supposed to increase 300%. 300%. That's going to be a lot of people in the United States. Do you have any idea, if you haven't had somebody in your family that's had Alzheimer's, how much it costs to maintain at the current rate somebody with Alzheimer's? I'll clue you in. It's around $100,000 a year. So if somebody lives 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, it's compounding. What if both spouses have it? Then it compounds even more. Who has that kind of income or finances to do that? So what typically happens as you start spending everything and selling everything off to pay for Alzheimer's. And is there anything left as your legacy when it's done? Does your family have anything to inherit if you had Alzheimer's? So what's it worth to you if you could put off Alzheimer's for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? It'd be worth a lot. Today I'm going to tell you what you can do for anti-aging longevity on the internal side. And the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to anti-aging and longevity supplements. So in a perfect world, you don't ever age at all. You never have to wear any of these. You never have to put in hearing aids. Your smell stays the same. your taste tastes the same, you remember everything. But aging is normal. But having chronic pain is not normal. You don't have to age and just be in pain and tired and suffering all the time. As we age, we start to have cognitive decline. And if you're watching this and you're in your 20s saying, this didn't happen to me, it actually starts in your 20s. So yeah, it is. And symptoms of cognitive decline would be, hey, I went into this room. What did I come in here for? Can't seem to smell as well as I used to. I can't taste as well as I used to. I don't remember things as well as I used to. I can't see as well as I used to. My hair is starting to foul out. My hair is turning gray. My skin's getting wrinkly. My skin has brown spots. My hair has become weak and brittle. Those are all signs of aging. I'm Dr. Trites. I'm the clinical consultant to Doctors Optimum. My job is to research products that have been used in anti-aging longevity as well as other products. And today I'm going to talk about those products that are researched that have been clinically shown to help with anti-aging and longevity and explain them to you so you know what to do with them. The supplements that are researched are to extend lives. That's part anti-aging and that's part of longevity. They need to be able to suspend genes. We don't want genes to be turned on and active that lead to chronic diseases and other illnesses. And how this works is it all comes down to something called a telomere. So in my hand, I have a rubber band. And in this rubber band, let's assume that this is the DNA strand. And the two parts of this are what's called telomeres. The longer the telomeres you have, the longer you're probably going to live. That means that the cells can live for quite a long time. Why that happens is because, I'm going to make this a little bigger. As they divide, the telomeres shorten. Another division, telomeres shorten. And every single cell in your body, for the most part, either has a death option, or by telomere shortening and shortening and shortening and shortening, all of a sudden it doesn't have its ability to be portrayed as something that's biologically active and it dies. So the shorter the telomeres, the shorter your life. So what we want to have is really long telomeres. That's what comes down to DNA, and that's how genes are turned off, or what's called gene expression. So the products that we're going to talk about, the supplementation for anti-aging longevity, has everything to do with telomere length. What you would be looking for in a supplement is something that can reduce the free radicals and maintain blood sugar handling, blood sugar maintenance. There are a couple of supplements that come to mind when we do that and have been in the research. Number one, there's resveratrol, and we'll get into the details of that a little bit later. And in the right combination, it reduces this thing called the SRT, or SRT gene, SERT gene, which has to do with longevity. And then whey protein isolate. Not whey protein, it's different. Whey protein isolate, because it has the ability to come in and stabilize blood sugar handling. In the event that you already are diabetic, there are several supplements that you can go after, whether it's cinnamon or what we like to use is called a B1, but it's a fat-soluble B1. If you take a water-soluble B1, it just goes right through your body and you get out. What if you take a fat-soluble one? It goes in the body and it helps stabilize and bring down the A1C, and then it has a side effect that it actually helps to reduce neuropathy. But That's a secondary thing. We're talking about someone who doesn't have an advanced glycolytic end product, or maybe has a higher A1C, but they're not diabetic. If you are diabetic, we suggest you have to add a secondary product. According to the American Society of Clinical Psychology, about 70% of Americans currently are under some stress, whether it is mental or physical. And of course, this ages us as well. So how in the world are you going to decrease stress? Well, you can do things that reduce that. You can relax, go to therapies. Exercise is a great stress reliever. You can get rid of the problem. That might be a relationship that you might have that's not going so well. Moving out of even sometimes a location or the environment that you're in, the environment of work, the environment of the house, the environment of maybe the climate isn't suitable or is causing you stress. Anything that you can do to reduce stress is a benefit to your body because it increases longevity. And anytime you increase longevity, you take those telomeres and you keep them where they're supposed to be instead of them coming down quickly. So when it comes to stress, I get a lot of questions. How in the world does this affect me? Well, it clogs things up because anytime you have a stress, it reduces your ability to fight infections, and it reduces your ability to mount an immune response. It reduces your ability to handle blood sugar because it has what's called a neurochemical response. It's endocrine. And how I explain it is, let's say you're driving down the road, or maybe you're walking down the street and there's an accident or an incident where somebody has gotten hurt. Well, the emergency vehicles might already showed up, so you might see a police car and the ambulance is there and the fire department is all there, and maybe even reporters have showed up, and even above there might be some helicopters. Well, we've all been here or seen something like that. How does traffic flow when there's an accident? It's slow. People slow when they look. Well, when you have stress to your body, consider it an accident. There is stress that the body adapts to, no question. But for the most part, you keep stacking stress, it's an accident. So it's going to slow down the ability for your heart to pump. It's going to slow down for your ability to digest. It's going to slow down the ability for you to have memory. It's going to slow down your anti-aging properties, your anti-inflammation, and it's going to decrease your immunity. So stress can be a big influence on aging. Stress can also come in the physical form, whether you've had an injury. So let's say you had an injury and now you have inflammation and now you have pain, and worse, you have swelling. Well, swelling is a big stress combination / anti-aging problem because it slows down. It's just like that accident that's happened. So then you have decreased blood supply, then you have decreased immunity, you have the inability for the body to get there and fight off that infection, or let's say you had a broken bone or something, it slows it down. It's a secure mechanism to keep you from getting worse, but it does slow down the healing process. The idea of anti-aging supplements is that they increase the body's ability to even deal with injuries. Maybe not catastrophic injuries, but injuries you've had throughout life. We've all fallen down. We've all broken, maybe you haven't. We've all hurt something at some point. And if you haven't, congratulations, I envy you. But the probability of you not getting hurt is relatively low. So we want to be on top of that for if that happens. How can my body heal faster? How can it get back to where it was, if not better? So when it comes to physical stress, a supplement needs to increase blood supply. It needs to increase immunity. It needs to decrease pain. So it needs to be an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory. In the supplement world, that comes to several products. Number one, resveratrol. We already talked about its ability to help out with the SRT gene. And turmeric. The turmeric has an active ingredient, so it's coumaroids, and that is the biggest part. And both of those, by the way, keep the telomere in check. Without those, it goes even faster. So again, we have another product that helps with telomere maintenance, and it helps reduce pain, and it increases the immune system. So you ever come across a car that was all rusted out, or you left the apple out for a little bit too long and it started to turn brown? Well, those are all called oxidation, and we know that oxidation isn't good. So in the nutrition world, in the medical world, we want to take something called an antioxidant. Why? Because oxidized forms create things called free radicals, and we know that free radicals can do several things. Number one, they can damage the DNA, and they can make our telomere shorter. Plus, it can make us feel bad, or it can lead to chronic disease. So we want to have antioxidants. But most antioxidants are more or less martyrs. They go into the bloodstream, and they connect, and then they go die, and now this one can become a free radical. So not all antioxidants are created equally. Ideally, we use what the body already has. It's called glutathione. And glutathione is pretty special. Not only does it go and it finds a free radical and then gets rid of it in the kidney, it comes back and makes a friend again. It doesn't have to be kicked out of the body, and it doesn't usually become a free radical. What this means is it has its own recycling program. While measurements in the blood are pretty inaccurate when it comes to glutathione numbers, it only tells you what's there. It doesn't tell you, well, if your level was 9, does that mean you're superiorly able to have a free radical recycling program, or if it's 20. There's no research that really says it. It's just a test that says it if it's there or not. There are several supplements that help with the glutathione recycling program, as well as decreasing the free radicals. Number one, a multivitamin that has a certain amount of vitamins and minerals that are specific for the recycling program, or supplements that help the body make glutathione. NAC, or N-acetylcholine, is one option, and whey protein isolate is another option. Again, whey protein isolate has an effect on blood sugar because it helps bring up and stabilize the blood sugar numbers. Circulation, especially good circulation, is paramount to good health. A decrease in circulation leads to increased inflammation, decrease in immunity, and of course, if you don't get any blood to your brain, you start having neurodegenerative problems. You start having a need for glasses. You start having a need for hearing aids. You start having memory loss, and more importantly, cognitive decreases. Your brain needs 3 things to survive. Number 1, it needs to have a blood supply. So heart pumping it up there. Number 2, it needs to have a food supply, and that comes in the form of glucose. And number 3, it needs to breathe. It needs to have the oxygen that's coming up there. Without that, all 3 of those telomeres, even in the brain, start to come down, and we start to age in our brain, and this is when we have cognitive dysfunction. So for every activity and thought, we have to have energy and oxygen that goes into it. If not, we don't get to our peak performance. We have a decrease in energy, we have a decrease in function, we have an increase in pain, inflammation, and we start to age. When we start to age, of course, we start wearing glasses, hearing aids, start dyeing our hair or cutting it a different way. We may not taste foods the same way. We might have joint pain that we never had before. It's harder for us to get around. And then, of course, we start forgetting things. So one of the biggest things to combat this, and you probably already heard of it, is called CoQ10. CoQ10 is in meats and nuts and other foods, and it helps the heart pump. It's essential, and every single cell in the body needs some form of CoQ10 because that's how the body makes energy. Now, when we hit about 25, we stop the ability to absorb CoQ10. It starts to decline. It doesn't mean you can't have it. But the majority of people who take CoQ10 are people who are on medications because of cardiovascular problems or diabetes, or they had low energy. They're not usually people in their teen years or early 20s. It's a little later. So when the probability of you digesting or absorbing CoQ10 as you get older gets less, then you probably should switch to another option. CoQ10 in the body is turned over to something called ubiquinol. So we suggest you take ubiquinol because it does the same thing that CoQ was doing at a higher absorption rate, and it's the functional side of it. When you have the right amounts of ubiquinol, it can help your memory, it can help cognitive effects, it can help support cholesterol, it can increase the immunity in your body, it can increase the blood supply. The sky is limitless when you have the right amount of blood sugar, the right amount of oxygen, the right amount of blood supply. The body can start to heal itself, and heal itself fast. So a few years ago, we were told that all fats are bad. In fact, you should probably be on a fat-free diet, and all these fat-free foods were out there because fat was bad. Well, it's come to find out that fat is not all bad, and it's actually good. But there's a difference. There are good fats, and there are, let's say, fried fats, which aren't so good for the body. And if you take all the fat out of your diet, and your brain is made of mostly fat, what happens? You lose your mind, you lose your memory, you have brain fog, you have brain fatigue. You're as far as educationally, you're useless. So we need to have fat in our diet. And so most people think that fish oil, which is a good fat, and essential fatty acids are the same thing. Well, they're close. So fish oil typically has 2 fats, and essential fatty acids has 4 fats, of which 2 of those fats are already in there. So the essential fatty acid has 2 more fats. And each of these fats have to be together because just the two fish oil fats have to work with the other two fats to make that fat work. Furthermore, essential fatty acids have to be stabilized in a base of mixed D-alpha tocopherols, or a type of vitamin E. Otherwise, like ubiquinol, it has to be in a liquid form and stabilized in the same form. If they don't, they become oxidized. We already talked about what oxidized does to the body. So we want to keep these in an oxidized or non-oxidized form, or what's called reduced. That's how you can have studies after studies that said fish oil is good, vitamin E is good, CoQ10 is good, ubiquinol is good, and then a study that says all of them are bad. Why? Because they were in the oxidized form. You put poison into your body. The idea is that you take 3 grams a day of an essential fatty acid that has 4 oils, and I'll get into the details on those later. A high quality essential fatty acid can increase brain function, can increase central nervous system, so the nerve cells actually communicate faster. It increases heart function. It can actually reduce cholesterol in most people. There is a genetic variant that essential fatty acids don't seem to have any effect on your cholesterol numbers. And it also, you have to have fat to make the lymph flow. That's your immune system. So essential fatty acids are very good for the immune system as well. Vitamin D is known to increase your immunity, decrease inflammation, decrease pain, and help with hormonal problems. So it's very hard to overdose. I know there's such a thing called vitamin D toxicosis. You can actually overdose, but the studies that we have found and we've gone through and looked, you're going to have to take 150,000 units or possibly even higher than that to get there in a sustained amount for a very long amount of time. As long as you're having your vitamin D tested, the reference range for what's called functional and healthy is about 50 to 70. Most reference ranges are 30 to 100. If you're on the low end, or if you have inflammation, or if you have a chronic disease, or if you have pain, we like to keep you higher in the 50 to 70 range because you have something to work with, and that should help maintain what vitamin D is there, and that's to extend your life and keep the telomere length long. The last product I'm going to talk about is something called a probiotic. Now, you may have had a probiotic before in the past, and maybe it worked, and maybe it didn't. Most people take probiotics because they have indigestion, or they have bad breath, or they have gas, or they have bloating, or they eat food and they have food sensitivities. And that's the normal time you should take a probiotic. But what goes into a probiotic? What makes it work? Well, probiotics are normal bacteria that sit inside of your gut and help you digest your food. They also have an effect on your immune system. 70% of your immune system is probiotics. They break down your food. They make these things called neurotransmitters that help you feel better. They help you make hormones. They help balance blood sugar. They help keep your brain intact. So probiotics are a pretty good idea when it comes to longevity and anti-aging. So what's the criteria of a probiotic? Number one, it has to get past the stomach. It has to be in a delivery system. So we suggest something in a time-released or a delayed-release capsule, so it starts to break down in the stomach, but it delivers into the intestines where they're supposed to be. Most products that we see out there might be a tablet or a liquid form or a gel form or a gummy. that the second it hits the stomach, it's kaput. What if it has to be refrigerated? It's not probably going to be stable enough to deal with the heat and the acid of the stomach, so it's also probably not going to pass. Now, there are about 6,500, maybe even 7,000 probiotic products that are on the market. We have found that less than 1% meet this criteria, so it really limits what you're looking for. The second criteria that it must have after it passes the stomach acid is it needs to have 15 billion cells. That's a B. Most of the products don't have that. They might have millions, or they might have 1 billion, or they might have 3 billion. Now, there are 297 clinical studies on humans, and they found that not only were there 12 strains that were effective, that you had to have at least 7 of those strains in a probiotic, and it needed to be at least 15 billion. At least. So we need to have it get past the stomach in 15 billion and have at least 7 strains. So 7 strains is our third criteria for a probiotic. So when only 1% have a delivery system, about 1% of that 1% have at least 15 billion. Now they might have 15 billion, but it might only be 1 strain, and that's our third criteria. So there are very few products out there that actually meet all of these criteria. So where are you to go to get all these products? Well, you can get online and start shopping around. We call it your do-it-yourself, and that's fine. It could work. You might find all the products that you want that meet all of those criteria. Or you start doing your own research and you develop your own product line. You spend thousands of dollars and you come up with a wonderful anti-aging longevity program. I wouldn't suggest that. Or I'm going to introduce you to Doctor's Optimum Anti-Aging Longevity Program. This program was the mainstay for this company. It was from the conception. The idea is that we can provide enough information, come up with a quality product, and educate you so you will say, oh yeah, this is what I need to do to help my anti-aging, to help my longevity, to be there for my family, and then of course my family to be there for me. The number one product that we need to have is a vitamin D. It needs to be in the D3 form, stabilized in a fat, and have mixed D-alpha tocopherols or a vitamin E, as we do not want it to become oxidized. Number 2, we want to have something that makes energy. Now, most people take CoQ10, but we suggest ubiquinol because it's easier to absorb and it does exactly what CoQ10 is supposed to do because it's converted to ubiquinol. And it is in a liquid form, possibly in a capsule, and stabilized with a mixed D-alpha tocopherol or a vitamin E. Number 3, an essential fatty acid, not a fish oil, that has these fats, ALA, GLA, EPA, and DHA. Those are the 4 fats I said I was going to give to you, and they need to have all 4 of those. And it needs to be about 3 grams stabilized in a mixed D-alpha tocopherol or a vitamin E. We will want to take a resveratrol, and the best form of resveratrol is what's called the trans form. That's what helps set up the DNA, especially in the SRT gene, for anti-aging and longevity and stabilizing the blood sugar. We want to take a turmeric or a turmeric acid, and the form that we want it in is a succumeroid. Ideally, we want it in 3 succumeroids, and it needs to be 95 to 100% succumeroids. We can also take, for our free radicals, several forms. One can be a N-acetylcholine or NAC, or a whey protein isolate because they help support the glutathione recycling system. We can also take a multivitamin for that, but there are several things that a multivitamin must have. It must have zinc, it must have vitamin A, it has to have vitamin C, it must have a B12, and must have a folate, and it must be free of copper and iron because those stop or hinder the absorption of the anti-aging minerals and vitamins. Last, you need to have a probiotic, and it needs to match these criteria. It has to have a delivery system that gets past the stomach. It must be 15 billion cells, and it must be 7 of the 12 research strains. Now you might start asking yourself, how much is this going to cost? When we started looking at anti-aging and longevity programs, a lot of offices were charging $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, and if you went to a spa, it could be $2,000 to $5,000 a month for anti-aging. Now they might have some other things, chemical peels, etc. But when it came to the supplementation, $1,000 a month was pretty standard. I think that's outrageous. So then we started looking at other companies. Well, they had a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they were still in the $600 to $900 range per month. Now, when we broke it down, did the probiotics have the 3 criteria to it that we talked about? No. Did they have a mixed alpha tocopherol in all their oils? No. Were they using the forms that we talked about? Not all of them. Or they might be adding different ones. And, you know, there are particular cases you might have a condition that needs to be supported in addition to, and I could see that, but that was all included. So they were including anything for any condition that you've ever could possibly have, or any family history that you ever could possibly have, and in one batch. So roughly speaking, you're taking 25 to 30 capsules or gel pills a day. 25 to 30, or you're paying $1,000 a month plus for another option. That's not really compliant. I wouldn't take 25 pills a day. I wouldn't take 20 pills a day. I wouldn't take 15 pills a day. I might consider 10. I might, if it had an effect on anti-aging and longevity. So what's it worth to you? So in recap, we came up with our basic anti-aging and longevity program, and it consists of 7 products. Number 1, it had vitamin D3, and that D3 is in a fat form with mixed D-alpha tocopherol, so it's unoxidized. Number 2, we have an EFA with all 4 oils. Each capsule is 1,000 milligrams. Now keep in mind, most capsules are 200 to 500 milligrams. How many capsules of those do you have to take to finally catch up to where you get to 2 or 3 grams a day? It also has a mixed D-alpha tocopherol to make sure it doesn't oxidize. We don't have CoQ10, we have ubiquinol. We have it in a gel capsule with a mixed D-alpha tocopherol, so it's not oxidized, therefore it's in the reduced form, so it works for you. We also have a multivitamin that consists of all the other additives that need to be there: vitamins A, vitamin C, folic acid, B12, and zinc. And they are free of copper and iron. In fact, we have 8,300 percentage of your daily dosage of vitamin B12 in our multivitamin. Why? Well, as we age, we stop having the ability to absorb B12 and folic acid. So we want to have those numbers pretty high. Also, when it comes to anti-aging, when it comes to cardiovascular care and brain care, the more B12 you have, the more you can what's called demethylate. It's a methylation process. So we want to have a lot of it in there. Number 5, we have turmeric acid. And how do we have it? We have it 50-50 turmeric acid and a succumeroid. Why? Succumeroid is the active ingredient. Number 6, we have resveratrol, and we use the trans resveratrol because we want to turn off that gene for blood sugar and increase telomeres. We have 400 milligrams. Roughly speaking, it's supposed to be about 200 to 300. We know you're not going to digest everything, so we want to give a little bit more, so when it comes in, it goes to work. Those are the 7. Now, you might be saying, there's other products that we were missing, mainly a probiotic. You're right. When I was first brought on to consult Doctors Optimum, I had my own private practice. Well, guess what? Most of my clients, patients, were on a probiotic, so it wasn't necessary for them to be on it. So we had to come up with a new formula. And that's when we came up with the Doctors Optimum Anti-Aging and Longevity Plus program. It still has the multivitamin, it still has the ubiquinol, it still has the EFA in the proper amount, it still has the vitamin D, it still has the resveratrol in it. Then we did some changes. We came up with, we wanted to add whey protein isolate because we want to increase that glutathione recycling to add another possibility to help with your free radicals, so an antioxidant. And we also want to keep your blood sugar stable because we don't want to have those AGEs, anti-glycolytic end products, affecting you. We also added, instead of the standard turmeric acid, we added a triple form succumeroid. And why we did that is one of those is neuroprotective. It's specific for the brain. That's what we need to have with anti-aging and longevity, is we need to have our brains intact. We also have one that's specific for pain. So we have brain and pain. And this product is called Brain Support. And the other succumeroid works on both of them, but it's not specific. It's kind of a general, and that's what we had in the first one. So we changed those out. And then we added our probiotic. We have 2 probiotics. We have a probiotic that meets the criteria, and then we have a probiotic plus. The probiotic plus has 9 of the 12 strains. It has 30 billion, so we're getting more cells than needed. It's in a very small capsule form, which is called a DR cap. So we know that it gets past the stomach, survives, and then sets up shop in the intestines. So again, we would ask, what would you think you'd be paying for a program like this? We did all the research. We put all the products together. And by the way, the liquid vitamin D is in drops. The whey protein isolate is in a powder form you're going to take in a drink. So when you take all of them, you're going to take 2 multivitamins. You're probably going to take 2, that's 4 now, EFAs. That's 4 pills, 1 resveratrol, 1 brain support, now we're up to 6, 1 probiotic, and 1 ubiquinol. 8 pills, not 25, not 30. So what should it cost? Should we be charging $1,000? Again, we know you're not going to get that. When I took all these products together, as we sell them on retail, roughly speaking, the anti-aging longevity program alone by itself was about $480. When we flipped that out, we had to add a probiotic plus, and we had to upgrade to a better form of turmeric so it had brain power and pain power. All of a sudden, the retail cost of this became around $600. And most people go, oh, that's still $600. But think of it this way. At $600, and you were spending, how long would it take for you to get to $100,000? And remember, the cost of Alzheimer's per year is $100,000. What if we could put Alzheimer's off for 5 years? How long would it take then? Or 10 years? Or 15 years? So even if you're, let's say, 25 years old and watching this, at the price that we have right there, it'd take you 20 or 30 years to get there. Now, here's another kicker. The price that we have on there is a 60-day supply. It's not a month. It's a 60-day supply. And I'll go even one further. Because we want you to have this and we want you to feel like we do, we want you to have what we have access to. We aren't even going to charge you shipping or handling. How many companies do that? They charge you shipping and then they make, well, we'll handle it. And, oh, let's see, I drove 20 miles to get here and 20 miles to get here. So now it's another $40 for handling. No, we're not going to do that. Shipping and handling are included. So the price of this product alone, retail, with shipping and handling, would probably be about $800. So roughly speaking, about $400 a month. We don't want you to pay that. In fact, we want it to be affordable for you for about $7 a day. So our price for watching this video for Dr. Optimum Anti-Aging and Longevity Plus program is going to cost you $225 a month. And what you're going to get is 8 products. You're going to get vitamin D, you're going to get the multivitamin, you're going to get the CoQ10, you're going to get the right resveratrol, you're going to get the brain, you're going to get the whey, you're going to get the EFA, and you're going to get the vitamin or the probiotic. All of them included, and it's going to be 8 pills. You can handle this. When we started this, we wanted to have the best anti-aging longevity program. And of course, in the next 6 months to a year to 2 years, there could be something that comes along and changes. And maybe you have a current blood sugar handling problem and you need some more support. We can provide that for you. But don't feel obligated that you have to buy from us. We just want to provide something. We wanted to provide it for us and our family. And then we started providing it for our clients, and they provided it for their family. And now we wanted to give it to you. So let me explain a little bit about Dr. Optimum. Number one, when we have any ingredients come in and we have them inspected, we want to make sure that it is what it is, and it's going to be there when it gets to consumption. So, for instance, vitamin K is kind of unstable. And if you put vitamin K in a product, in about 3 years, let's say you put 1,000 milligrams in, there's only going to be about 200 milligrams left. They have a half-life that breaks up. So if you put on the label 1,000 milligrams, which some companies do, at the time of consumption, it might not be anywhere close to that. So you have to understand the half-lives. You have to understand the synergy of the products. Do they work together with each other? Do they make an enhancement to the other product? And that's what we're looking for, especially when we come up with any type of program. All of our products are made in the United States. We have what's called a CGMP. CGMP stands for Current Good Manufacturing Processes. It's a standalone for the FDA to make sure that what goes into the product gets into the product. All of our products are soy-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, gluten-free. We want to make sure there's no additives. Even the whey protein isolate doesn't technically have gluten, but if you have a really heavy milk sensitivity, we can find you something else for that. I truly feel blessed to be up here and explaining this and giving you what we know about anti-aging longevity. I hope you buy from us. If you don't, I hope you find what you're looking for. All my best. I'm Dr. Trites with Dr. Optimum. Be well.